for portrait. We'll cover that. Okay. I'm so nervous to go live today for some reason. It's snowing outside, crazy snowstorm. Family is out playing in the snow, and I finally got to the tomatoes that have been sitting in my basement. And if you're not here now, the replay will be up. Maybe we'll see how this goes. I haven't gone live since the fall. I did some canning and stuff like that, and it was you have to have a lot of stuff ready to go. I don't know if I have everything ready to go. So I've actually been making, working down my tomato paste. I've never canned tomato paste, first of all. I've been working it down over the last day. Last night I got them thaw. I put them through the sauce master, which I've done in a few other videos. It's basically a machine that separates out pores, seeds, skin from the pulp and juices. And I let that sit overnight because it's going to take a while to reduce. So I got the reducing this morning. And one thing that I really have been wanting to do with the tomato paste, which again, I've never done, is reduce it in the oven because it creates like a caramelized flavor with the tomatoes instead of just boiling it. So we started out with 6 gallons of tomatoes and it came down to this. This is maybe a 4 to 6 quart pot. And so what I probably made a mistake on is I didn't actually know how many tomatoes I started with. So I had, like I said, I had 6 gallon bags, but I didn't weigh them. And the only recipe that I found through the ball book said to start with, X number of pounds of tomatoes. So we're not starting with a pound of tomatoes. And so anyway, sorry, I'm distracted. There's an alarm going off upstairs. But yeah, so I've been reducing these. I don't know the exact number that I started with. This actually calls for citric acid. I have not canned with that before at all. I know it's an option in a lot of recipes, but I've never used it myself. But this one specifically said it's required, which I thought was interesting. So anyway, it said that the ratio to tomatoes to citric acid needs to be very consistent. So I made sure that I thought about how many jars this is going to make because it's supposed to make 8 or 9 according to the recipe. So anyway, hopefully our proportions on citric acid are good. There's a little bit of salt in our tomato paste. I boiled it with bay leaves and a little garlic. Other than that, it's just been reducing a lot. And I'll show you how thick it is. It's not like a Hunt's tomato paste, but it kind of just mounds on the spoon, which is what they kind of said that should be the gauge. So that's what we did. And I kind of got a little setup here. I'm not sure exactly how many jars. I'm actually going to put this one in the oven. I have my jars warming in the oven. I have 7 pints. Not sure we'll get those. I've got here my canner heating up. I think I'll turn that up quite a bit. Now, these boil for 45 minutes. And I know this live is not going to be 45 minutes long. So I'm actually just going to fill my jars. If you hear the dog barking like crazy, we got over a foot of snow. I think they said as of this morning it was like 14 to 16 inches, which is just crazy because we already have so much snow. So like we could open our back door. I'm gonna wash these quick. I know some people don't wash them. They say to wash them. I usually just kind of hit them with a clean rag and some soap. I'm gonna do that right now. All right, I'm actually using paper towels for a lot of this stuff because all my kitchen rags are dirty. They're in the dryer, but they're still being laundered. So, all right. Now, the reason I decided to go with tomato paste is a couple of reasons. Number one, I know I keep mentioning I've never made it before, and I like to experiment with things that I've never made before that pique my interest. And one of the reasons why I've never done this is because it just seems intimidating to me to be reducing something so much into something so thick, because I know when I do jams that way and things like that, they are so prone to sticking And I don't want to deal with like a burnt bottom and all that kind of crazy stuff. So anyway, I'm just going to check here. I apologize. This is, I've literally, it's been many, many months since I've done a live, and I think they've changed some things on here. I can't, not that there's anything in the chat, but I can't see it. So, okay. All right. So if you can tomato paste, let me know. This is something new. And yeah, so I started heating my jars in my oven, waiting for them to be filled in the canner. And the reason I like doing that is because I know for sure it's going to be the right temperature, especially when filling in hot stuff. Bring you closer here. When we're filling in hot things, hot liquids into hot jars, and then again putting them into hot water bath canner, we want, of course, everything to be a very similar temperature. So I just set my oven at 200. I don't do 220 because I know my water isn't boiling. It's just under 220. So I do 200. I am so glad to be getting these out of my freezer. I mean, 6 gallons of frozen tomatoes takes up a lot of space. So it says a 1/2 inch headspace. That's maybe a little bit much. I'll take a little out, I think. And because of the snowstorm that we have, I tried to scrape together enough jars in my house. Normally I keep them in our garage, but I can't really get to the garage right now because the path is not clear. We've been focusing on clearing like our neighbors. We have some neighbors that are a little older, so we're doing their section and other things around our property before we do our garage path. But yeah, these have been taking up so much space. And I thought about doing salsa, such a good idea that I did not do that because I think the texture would have been a little interesting. If a person were to do like a freezer, using freezer tomatoes to make a salsa, if you did like a puree, it probably would be just fine. But because we have really enjoyed a salsa that is not a puree, I don't think it would have turned out the way we wanted it to. The other thing about the tomatoes that I used in this, they were not all Roma tomatoes. So when reading the instructions, I had to keep that in mind. There's a lot more liquid in these tomatoes because a lot of them were just the really big, juicy garden tomatoes. So, holy cow, we're gonna get right. I've gotten to have a really good eye for how many jars I will need for a canning project. To where I like to guess. It's kind of a fun game. All right, that is almost. I missed a bay leaf. Wow, look at that. There's a little bit in there. I'll scrape and put in our fridge for something, but there we have our jars. You can hear the canner is getting close. There's lots of steam coming off. Hopefully it's not in the way here. All right, I think a lot of these might be a little bit full, just a little bit too much. And I think I said, yeah, this is gonna go for 45 minutes. That's a long processing time for tomatoes. I actually would really like to do this in the pressure canner because it wouldn't take as long. Wow, I actually don't have any extra because this little wide mouth is taking more. Speaking of our next door neighbors, one time I was talking canning with the husband, and he was so excited to learn that I canned when we moved into this house. He was talking about his salsa and all this stuff, and then he was asking me one day if the wide mouth pints and the regular mouth pints are the same size because he thought they were different. He knew they were pints, but I don't think that he realized, I think because of the mouth size. So I don't always use vinegar. I know a lot of people use vinegar to wipe their rims of the jars. I just stick, I mean, you can see it, it's steaming. I stick my paper towel, usually I use paper towel because it's so much cleaner, into my canner because I know it's really nice and hot water. Anyway, so he was asking about the amount that you're able to get into each jar because he wanted to try to get in as much salsa as he could into his jars. I said, well, I think they're the same. He's like, I don't think so. So he measured, and he said, he told me another day, he goes, I found out that the wide mouths hold less. And I was like, a little kind of like, well, that's not right because they're the same size. However, he was right. And the reason is because with the now I don't think it's with these, it's specifically with the pints because the shape of the jar is different. With the regular mouth pints, it curves in like this. It's got these shoulders, whereas the wide mouth, they're straight shouldered. So at the top here, there's more surface area exposed than the regular mouth. Anyway, so I thought that was kind of interesting. So whenever I freeze things, I always keep in mind that whenever you freeze things in liquid form and put them in your freezer, you want to make sure that you have a straight edged jar so there's room for it to expand and things like that. 1 second, somebody's coming in. It's the dog. His paws are just full of snow. Brutus, come here. He's got such long hair right now. He's a newfie. He's such a sweetheart. So yeah, when I freeze things, I always have to keep in mind that whenever I do the pints, it's like I have to think, okay, this is more like a cup and a half. Sometimes a cup and 3/4, but definitely under 2 cups. Whereas with the regular mouth, I can kind of assume that it's going to be much closer to a 2-cup measurement. But you know what? It's okay because when you buy cans in the store, so when you're following like recipes or whatever, they usually call for like a 14 or 15 ounce can anyway. So I figure it is close enough. All right. Oops, sorry about that. That's looking pretty good. Starting to get some bubbles coming up, so I'm probably going to actually just go ahead and load these in, if I can get this to stay. I also thought it was really interesting that I woke up this morning to all this snow and knew that I was going to do this canning project, because it just could not be. I mean, we've had a ton of snow this year. December even set a record for us. We're in Minnesota by one of the Great Lakes, and so we get a lot of snow effect weather, but it could not be more opposite than summer. So I was thinking I would ask you guys if you're gardeners, first of all. If you are, say yes. And then if you've started planting your garden, and maybe you're even in a warm spot where you've been able to plant. All right, there we are. We are loaded in. If this was a shorter water bath, I would stay on, maybe like, if it was like 15 or 20 minutes or something like that, I would definitely stay on. But I think you might get a little bored sitting in my kitchen for that long. I put a community post out this week about content too, because I want to make sure that I'm making stuff that you guys want to see. I don't want to put out stuff that, you know, you like bypass and you're like, geez, why is she making these kind of videos? This is boring. Or I don't know, I want to put out stuff that's applicable. And I know that a lot of people have come here for canning, a good chunk when I did my beef canning video last fall. So I want to make sure that I'm, making content that people want to see and appreciate. Canning, incidentally, was the biggest percentage-wise. At least half of the people who responded said canning. If you haven't responded to that post and you have a vote, please go do it. And then if you want to put something in the comments, if there's something extra, I know some people put some things in about canning with like dietary restrictions, reducing salt, reducing sugar, things like that. Yeah, and then just kind of canning, what you do with your canned food and stuff like that. I did put out a like a little video series in the fall about things that I was cooking with our canned goods. But if you want me to do that on a more ongoing basis, I can. I was thinking that if the processing time for this was lower too, that I could show my canning shelves, because like putting these canned goods back. But I guess that'll be tomorrow. I'll post a picture of that. I'll post it on the community page later today or tomorrow, once these come out of the canner, because our shelves are so light. And I've actually stopped moving my canning jars. If you saw my pantry tour, I was talking about how I don't like to usually store my cans, my empty jars on my shelf. I like to keep them in other places because it just keeps it cleaner. They're all full of empty jars now, so that went out the window. But you can still see how empty they are and how much canned stuff we've used. Oh, let me show you this. As long as you're here, or as long as I'm here. And if you're not on the Instagram, I've been kind of trying to post there and kind of follow along with like my day sometimes there and like the stories. It's not traditionally something that I've been very good at or very like consistent with. But if you are on Instagram and want to follow over there too, check it out, because I've been trying to, like I said, post on my stories about things I'm doing, little things I'm making and stuff like that on like a more like snippet basis and not necessarily a big long video. But I have I made some mustard. And so this is actually something that I want to do upcoming. I ordered some mustard powder. It's supposed to be here tomorrow. With all this snow, I'm assuming it's not going to be here tomorrow. But anyway, it's just straight traditional yellow mustard. I have canned stone ground and cranberry mustard in the fall, and both turned out awesome. The cranberry one is a little sweet. The stone ground one is not sweet. But I found from a different YouTube channel recently that makes mustard, a trick on how to kind of reduce the spiciness. But what I have found is that it actually reduces the bitterness of the mustard. That's something that I've had an issue with before in the past, is just really not liking like this flavor, kind of an unidentified flavor with mustard powder, mustard seeds and stuff like that. And if you do this thing that I did from them, it is completely gone. So I am super excited. So I did an experiment. This one I did their technique. This one I just followed the recipe straight as is. And this one's definitely the winner. It literally tastes exactly like the bottle that we have in the fridge that we love and usually buy. So anyway, that is up and coming, and I'm super excited about it. I don't know if I'm going to get to it this week. I also have another project coming this week. I might as well just keep telling you what's coming. This week, I am borrowing 2 dehydrators. I was thinking humidifiers. Dehydrators from our local community garden program. So I have one, and my only gripe with my current dehydrator is that it doesn't have that large of capacity for what I want to do. If it was just me, I probably would have plenty, but we've got a bigger family, and I do a lot of gardening stuff, so when it comes in, there's really like a lot of volume that I'm dealing with, and I need something bigger. And so otherwise it just takes too much time. In fact, I've been thinking maybe I should get another canner and things like that, like thinking, okay, how can I make this a little easier and not quite so overwhelming when I do these things? So I'm borrowing 2 dehydrators from the local community garden program, which I've been a member of for like 10 years or something. But they've got lots of food preservation tools, including canners, which is now in this moment I'm thinking I could totally just borrow from them. So that's going to happen this week. Again, probably not tomorrow because of the snow, but I'll have to reschedule the pickup. Anyway, I'm going to dehydrate a bunch of greens. And I've done a green powder video before, and I actually just ran out of my my spinach powder, and I really, really, really want to get another one going. To be able to have like a vegetable that we can throw in our smoothies is amazing, because we try to get as many vegetables as we can. It's not always as successful as I would like it to be, but that's such a great way to get in like a lot of nutrition. They're minimally like cooked and processed, which is not something that I can save for things that I freeze or can. A person could even dehydrate on a really low setting, and then it's sort of like raw. But anyway, I'm rambling, so I appreciate if you're still with me. Anyway, this is about boiling, and we're going to try and take a peek here. I don't know if my cabinet's going to stay. Okay, we're not at a rolling boil. My good friend at Make It Make, you know, if you've seen her videos, when she cans, she reiterates to make sure it's at a rolling boil, and it's not quite. It's going. We want to wait until it's like a raging boil, really. And if I was stirring this, it would be the kind of boil that you can't stir down. So anyway, we're going to wait a little bit longer, 45 minutes. We'll pull these out. I will throw a photo on the community page. So out of one batch of tomatoes, I got some winter deer there. Out of one batch of tomatoes, which was, if this gave me seven half pints, the recipe said 8 to 9. I'm guessing that I was pretty close to the weight measurement. I'm sorry if I'm just rambling and not giving very specific measurements here. I want to say it was like 14 pounds of tomatoes, which is a lot. That's a lot of tomatoes to reduce into such a small amount of jars. But again, part of that was my fault for not using just sauce tomatoes. I'm probably not going to find it here. No. Oh, here we go. 34. I have 2 of these because some of them have different recipes. Let's see. I actually looked up the recipe online. The Georgia Extension website, I find usually when I search something that I can't find in my canning books, if I search it, usually almost always the Georgia Extension page pops up. Okay. Oh, so interesting. See, I should have looked. It's been, okay. I've looked, and it's been since October since I've canned anything. So it's been a while. And even though I can a lot, you forget, you know, all of that. So the Georgia website said, I think it was 14 to 15 pounds of tomatoes. This one actually said, and it said it would yield 8 to 9 half pints. This one says 16 pounds yields 9 pints. This also calls for red bell pepper, which I didn't want to put in, so I wouldn't have put it in even if I had it. Salt is optional on this one. Garlic is optional on both. Bay leaves I used. Okay, now we're at a rolling boil. I'm gonna get my timer going here. I don't know if you can hear the difference in the sound of the jars. I don't even need to open the lid. I can just tell that it's rolling now. And I even turn it down. I don't keep it on high. I use usually like a medium high. Usually maintains enough heat to keep it going strong. Okay, so then this one called for citric acid or bottled lemon juice. I happen to have citric acid from probably 8 or 9 years ago. I made bath bombs. You know those like fizzy things that you compact and then you know, you throw in your tub and it just kind of makes a fun fizz, and you can add like scents, and I don't remember if it creates a soap. I think it just kind of fizzes. Anyway, they're really fun to create, but I had all this from that. So I had citric acid, but this one actually says you could use lemon juice. The other one did not. So it's interesting because even like reputable sources for like what you're supposed to do, it varies a little bit. Because like I said, the website that I saw did not say that you could use the juice. Yeah, and this one just says either or. Okay, so one other thing that's really interesting is that I wonder when this was made. This says a quarter teaspoon of citric acid into a pint jar. Oh boy. That recipe said a teaspoon for the whole batch. And this one says to add it to the jar. The other one specifically said to add it when you were reducing the volume, because that was really an important part of getting it well incorporated. Anyway, we'll stop there. Thank you for being here as we get our tomato paste canned, or at least started. I hope you have a wonderful day. We will see you soon.